Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Watch That Movie podcast, the show where we talk about movies. I watch them, I review them. Today, we're going to be talking about Thunderbolts, the new MCU film that came out. I know I'm a little late in the game talking about this movie, but um, I finally have the time. I was busy with school, busy with finals, and a lot of things came up. I never had the right time to record this episode, but finally, I'm here to talk about Thunderbolts. Hopefully, you're here to hear my thoughts and take a quick gander of what the movie's about. And if you still want to watch it and catch it in theaters in time, so be it. But regardless, if you just watched it, if you're interested in watching it or want to hear my thoughts about movies and such in general, especially ones coming out in theaters, go ahead and click that like and subscribe button. Click the follow button on Spotify. Subscribe if you're seeing this video on YouTube. It means a great deal of support for me. We're just starting out this new series of movie reviews, and I keep promising and will be hopefully soon getting started on some extra content for my YouTube channel for those who are interested. Stay tuned out for that. And I do apologize this episode. I'm having some sore throat issues, so I will be quieter than usual, but regardless, I'm here to provide this review for you because I feel like this movie is pretty important considering the timeline that we're in and the run that the MCU has currently performed. Some would say underperformed because right now MCU, in my opinion, is in a bit of a rocky state. We're seeing a bit of a renaissance. We're seeing a bit of a peak, especially considering how favorable, well, generally favorable, the Daredevil Born Again series is doing and how Thunderbolts has done so far. It's not the best thing in the world, and it's not doing immensely, huge numbers. It's not doing huge numbers, but it is surprising and a breath of fresh air from what you've probably been hearing from a lot of people who've seen it. And that's what it is. And that's probably the best way that I can summarize it. A breath of fresh air, because Thunderbolts feels like the kind of Marvel movies that you'd watch in between the the real good ones. I mean, not to say that the Thunderbolts is a low in terms of like the lowest of lows, like for example, I don't know, Iron Man 2 or Thor: The Dark World. Those are like probably the lowest moments that you got during the first and second phases of Marvel. But I feel like people tend to look back on those more favorably compared to the lowest of the lows that we get nowadays, especially with MCU content, with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Uh, People would rather prefer that than what we're getting now. And I feel like people who enjoy this movie feel like this is kind of what we're missing. Like when we're not doing the huge epicness things, this is what we should be doing, getting a bit grounded with characters, really being with them and understanding the deeper workings of our favorite superheroes, our favorite side characters, comedy or our comedic relief characters, our edgy characters who are silent, getting to know them a bit more and giving them a chance to tell their own story and expanding on this universe that way. Uh, Getting right into the summarization of my thoughts on this film, that's really what this movie is about. We get a ragtag team of anti-heroes, I assume, as some of them. Yeah, I guess they're anti-heroes, because that's one of the various amount of them being assassins and criminals in some cases. But um, the plot of the Thunderbolts is basically Valentina, who's the director. I guess she's the head of the CIA in this version of Earth in the United States. She has been using these assassins and these people like Bucky and um not the Black Widow. I mean, she is a Black Widow, but um Yelena, uh not the Red Guardian, but also Ghost, who is a villain that we saw in Ant-Man and the Wasp. Um and Taskmaster, she's been using these characters to carry out her missions and all her secret jobs, I guess, that she needed the CIA, um, all the things that she needed to be done she gave these secret missions to them, and now that she's under fire and being investigated in by the U.S. government, um, we see her basically cleaning house, getting rid of all these things that could incriminate her, and all these things that could ruin her campaign. Basically, she's not running in for anything, I think, but basically, she's getting rid of any evidence to suggest that she's been doing illegal things, and more so illegal, um, that could throw her in jail and basically ruin her career. And surprise, surprise, um, all these uh, uh, agents that she's been using. U.S. agent, there you go. That's another one. The former temporary Captain America, John Walker. He was another one of the. Um, I keep wanting to say agents. I'm just gonna say agents because I guess guess what they are. They're also assassins, but they're really agents. They're really working for her. But Walker, along with everyone else, is also evidence that could be used against her. So she sends them on a mission, and eventually, while she tries to get rid of them, they come together in an attempt to survive and try to uncover a mystery. That being um, Bob, who is part of another project and another one of the things that Valentina has been researching, trying to create a superhero called the Sentry. This is like not really. I'm gonna I'll get into more spoilers, but at this point, I'll be touching on some slight spoilers, but really just glossing over the first, second act of this movie because at the same time, this movie has been out for a long time already. So if you're here, you probably already seen it, or you really just don't care enough. You kind of just want to, hear someone talk about the movie, and I respect that. That's fine. But really, that's what the crux of this first and second act are. The Thunderbolts. These characters are about to be killed. I discover a character named Bob. Um, he's didn't work for Valentina, but he signed up for a program. They're testing, using experiments on people to create a new version of a super soldier, different from what we've seen with Bucky and the Winter Soldier program, which is completely different. Um, but basically, um, through this, they come together, and I'll get into more deeper spoilers in terms of the plot, because after that, we really just get into like more, much more spoiler um, things about the movie. But to sum up, to talk about more broad things about the movie, I gotta say the thing that carried this movie the most was the acting. The acting was really incredible. I like Bucky a lot as a character, and I feel like Sebastian Stan has been doing a lot of good things with his career and I would say, is the better actor, along with Florence Pugh in this cast. But Florence Pugh's character as Yelena is probably the heart of this movie. Her and David Harbour, and David Harbour more in the sense of as the comedic relief character. I feel like everything he's done is absolutely hilarious, and her and him being the heart of this story, um, and being in a lot of the emotional moments, basically make this Black Widow sequel, because they're the two um, two I was gonna say not companion characters, um, but they were the two side characters that were introduced in Black Widow along with Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow titular character. But Yelena and the Red Guardian, in this movie, Red Guardian being as hilarious as Yelena is emotional in the sense that you really feel for what she's feeling. And it's a good thing that they really um, that they leaned into this aspect, because her arc and the thing that she learns, or the thing that she has to grow in this movie, parallels to what the antagonist, the Void, slash Bob. By the way, that's not really. I mean, if we were really wondering who the villain was, um, it was clearly Bob in the trailers. I mean, maybe it wasn't obvious, but Bob is the Sentry. Sentry is the Void. The Void is Bob. It's three in one, kind of a package deal. but that's clearly. But if you watch the trailers, you're like, that kind of looks like. I mean, who else could it be? Bob, this character. I mean, in the casting, in the thing, it says um, Bob and then slash Sentry when you look at the information online, or if you were looking at any of the promotional stuff in the movie, um, and then you could put one and one together, and then notice the shadowy being flying with a cape. Like, oh, so that's probably Sentry or a different version of him. So I think it's pretty clear what's gonna happen to Bob slash Sentry. But basically, Yelena's character, her arc ties pretty well with Bob's arc and character, and I gotta say, it made me tear up in some moments. I really felt for Yelena the moment that she shares with the Red Guardian, David Harper's character. He can get there. He can really get you there too in the emotional moments. He's not just funny. He's also really endearing, and as bad as a father as he is, because he's been pretty absent in Yelena's life, as she mentions in the movie. He really steps up and reminds Yelena who she is, what kind of person she is, what kind of you know person she aspires to be, someone that people can count on, because that's really what she struggles with in the movie, and really the theme of the movie is that what is the point when there's so much bad going on in my life, in the world, feeling like I'm doing nothing that matters or doing anything that means anything in the world. What is the point of living on? And it's a pretty deep stuff, considering that this is, I want to put, not spoiler warning, but really trigger warnings, that this movie and the theme kind of leans on suicidal undertones in terms of what the content that we see and the things that suggest to what Yelena is, talking about. Not really that, I don't think it really explicitly shows or suggests that Yelena and Bob per se are suicidal, but it is heavily implied that the things they do and the things they've been through suggest that they've thought about it, at least that's what the void is in terms of you know um, the things about his character, and the all the stuff that you see about his character, which I'll touch on in the spoiler section. But basically, she really carries this movie. Acting is particularly really good about this movie. Other than one actor in particular, which I'll touch on in my dislikes about the movie, there's some really good, solid action scenes, especially in the first and second act. Um, I really enjoyed the action scenes. I feel like, and I was like, as I was watching this, I'm like, why wasn't any of this, or why wasn't the stunt choreographer in this movie helping out, or a part of A Brave New World, the Captain America movie, the last MCU movie that came out? Because that movie, the action in that movie was absolutely atrocious. It was a snooze fest and doesn't hold the candle to the action scenes that we get in this. Um, I feel like we didn't get a lot of that in the third act, and I'll explain why. But from what we do see, the action scenes in Thunderbolts, it was really good. It was really, really good, and it was really refreshing to see some good, solid choreography that really make the punches land and the kicks fly, and is really entertaining to watch. But as I now that I've mentioned some of the things that I did like, I feel like before we get into officially jump into spoilers, some things I didn't like is that there is a lack of structure throughout the first and second uh, act. Um, I feel like there was no real beginning, and I feel like once the first act was already ending, I didn't really feel like we were established. I don't know. It just felt weird. I feel like we just started it, and we just never really officially started without like knowing um, what the movie was about. Like, we I know what's happening. I know what the movie is kind of leading to, but I didn't know where it was going, and that wasn't really a good thing. And it wasn't usually when you say that, like, "Oh, I have no idea where this movie is going." That's usually a good thing, in terms of that the movie is not, you know, easy to guess, and that it's what do you call it? Uh, oh my God, I'm blanking here. It's not boring, I guess. Or I got what I want to say. It was weird that I didn't like that I knew where it was going, because I feel like I'm like, okay, what is this movie really about? Because I feel like we're not really getting a sense of the structure of what we're dealing with. Like I knew it was gonna center around Bob's character, and we do get introduced to him once our main characters are trapped in the vault that Valentina's put him in, trying to get rid of them. Um, and it's a really fun sequence, that entire thing. It's like kind of like a dungeon slash escape the room situation. There we get to see the banter and the chemistry that we see between the actors. Um, they realize that, they're not really heroes, and they don't work together, but they're somehow figuring out a way to escape and survive, which is really fun. Lewis Pullman's character as Bob is also a pretty solid actor. Um, he's pretty entertaining, also kind of a comedic relief character. And yeah, but again, I just don't know. I feel like the scenes were the stuff the stuff that was in the scenes was pretty entertaining, but I feel like the scenes edited together, they were just either not edited well together, or the way the plot was written, it just felt jarring. I just felt like, okay, where are we going? Like, I feel like we're just jumping here to there, and I feel like once we get to the middle of the movie, I'm like, oh, I guess this is where the movie's going. All right, like I can tell where it's ending already. Predictable was the word. It's usually when a movie is predictable, it's not good. But this movie was unpredictable in a way that I felt worried about how this movie was being written and where we were going, because for a moment it felt like things were just kind of slapped together. And that was really through the exposition elements that we see through Valentina's character, because I feel like the stuff with her, I felt like, you know, um, I didn't, even though I like the action that we get, again, I'll start to touch on the stuff that we discussed in the third act. I feel like there wasn't enough action in the third act, but I did like the fact that in the third act, in the resolution of the story, they didn't use action to solve the problem and to defeat the antagonist of the story, because that's the entire point. And I feel like that's a really good thing and a new spin on that Marvel is doing, because a lot of the things, almost all the movies that we see and all the villains that we see in the way they're dealt with, is that you punch your way to the problem, you fight your way to the problem. In this case, it was dealt differently. I just wish before we get to that moment, we had a little bit more things for the Thunderbolts to do, because they did get to save the day. They get to have their moments in showing themselves that they are heroes, that they are protecting people, that they are worthy of being a group worth um, being a group, that is worthy of being called heroes. The things that they did there in the city while the Void was attacking everybody was really cool. I don't know, but I felt like, and there's not really much you can do against the Void or Sentry, because as we learn, because Valentina realizes that Bob is worthy of being a new superhero that she has now created, and she can use as a front to her justifying all the things that she's done in secret. Um, she then convinces Bob to become the Sentry, to become a new hero, to lead the world and lead the Avengers. Um, and basically, because of this, it gets into the head of Bob slash the Sentry, like, why do we need to take orders for anyone? And then he starts becoming a threat, and there's really nothing that the Thunderbolts can do. And the quick action sequence that we see there is the Thunderbolts fighting Sentry, because he is really, really OP. Because he has like a billion powers. He has telekinesis, super strength. He has flight. He has, I don't know. I forget all the superpowers he has. He has heat vision. He has like a lot of superpowers. I don't know exactly the specifics of his character. I'm not familiar with the character Sentry. I only was slightly familiar with him once the trailers were coming out and people were talking about him in the movie. But um, you know, he's the villain. There's not much the Thunderbolts can do, since especially most of them are just super soldiers. I feel like Ghost is the only one that can maybe do something, but that's only because she has a power different from everyone else, which I really like about her. And because of that, I understand the route they took was a realistic route, because again, you can't do much. The Thunderbolts can't do much against the Void and the Sentry. But again, I just wish there was a little more they can do. That way we can have a little bit more action. And then once we get to the very crux and the very resolution of the problem in the third act, we feel like okay, and then we're about to end, you know, because once we were resolving the conflict towards the end of the third act, I felt like, oh wow, this is the movie's ending. I wish we could have gotten a little bit more. Um, but again, it's a paradoxical problem, so there's not much we can do about that. Um, before we get into spoilers, there's not much else other than that. So, spoiler warning for those who haven't seen the movie, or for those who still want to see the movie. Yeah, that's the one way to kill Taskmaster. I really did. I don't think anyone was surprised that they were going to kill off Taskmaster, but I did not think they were going to kill her off that way, that fast. Like really, really that fast. Even like it was just out of nowhere. I think Ghost is the one that kills Taskmaster because Valentina has sent each member of the Thunderbolts, uh, other than Bucky and um, Red Guardian, because Valentina sent uh, Walker to kill Ghost, and then Ghost to kill Taskmaster, and then Yelena to kill Taskmaster or something like that. She basically sends them all into this room to kill each other so that she can like wrap it up neatly and then torch the whole place. And eventually, Ghost ends up being the only one to complete her mission in killing Taskmaster. And I know people didn't like this version of Taskmaster, one because it strays too far from being comic accurate, and they don't like the way they um, using her as Taskmaster. Her being the daughter of a politician, or Dracov's daughter, I think, that was the main antagonist. The main antagonist of Black Widow, I think that was her daughter, or her niece, or something. Some Someone being related to Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow's past, her being the Taskmaster, you know, people didn't like that. And I don't blame them, but I feel like this is just a really rushed way of doing it. That's my only gripe, and it's not a huge complaint. I just felt really whiplashed from the way they handled that character because we could have used a little more of her. Because whether you liked her or not, or whether you liked her as the Taskmaster or not, her as the Taskmaster, just as a just as that character, is pretty cool. Because the Taskmaster, even in this universe, is capable of a lot of things. And again, we didn't really get to see her do a lot of the things as Taskmaster because like the point of her being that character is that they're able to analyze and copy all of the moves and you know replicate powers of other Avengers and other characters in the MCU. We don't see that a lot in here. I mean, we see them do some pretty cool stuff action wise, but that quickly is ended when Ghost puts a bullet through her head, which is crazy. Um, you know, I was kind of disappointed by that, but you know, again, I would have preferred she died in a way that was useful to the plot. But I guess this showed that, yeah, I just don't know. I just don't know why they killed her off that soon. I guess they just wanted to show that the Thunderbolts are capable of being as dangerous as they say they are, or they just didn't know what to do with her and they just wrote her off real quick. Um, you know, but that's a shame. And I really didn't like, I guess, uh, yeah, there's not much you can say about that. And then diving into spoilers with Bob and being the Void. The Void is a manifestation of all the negativity that Bob has in his past because of the abuse from his father and the loneliness he felt and the uselessness that he's felt throughout his life. Um, and him, you know, not belonging anywhere. So he decides to throw it on a Void. And when he loses control, well, not really loses control, but as a symptom of this problem, anyone who comes in contact with him are seeing anything glimpses of any negative aspect of the thing that haunts them the most in their life. We see this through Yelena, who experiences, you know, her backstory. One of the tests that she has to go through in the Red Room to become a Black Widow is kill off a walk her one of her old childhood friends. Like she leads her to the woods to be executed because I guess that was a test to lose all connection or throw away any um, friendships in her life. But I think also the daughter was connected to someone that the Red Room wanted killed. I could be wrong, but regardless, Yelena has shown something from the past that haunts her. John Walker, U.S. agent, eventually comes in contact with Bob and experiences something similar. Him dealing with being not being a good father, being cast out and shunned by the world by being a bad Captain America, and then losing that title. And Valentina experiences that by her father being killed. I believe it was her father that was being killed by somebody. I don't know exactly what the reason was. While that was interesting, I really don't care about a character, and I'll explain that in a bit later. Um, but what they did with Bob is really good. I really do like him as the Void, and they again, even though he is a bit too OP for the Thunderbolts to handle, everything I liked about him and about the Void and about the Sentry was really cool. Other than the blonde hair, but they do mention that Bob does mention that he's like, "Why the blonde? I don't really like this hair," and neither do I. But everything that they do with him is really cool, and him being the Void is a very nice metaphor and a very nice manifestation of the movie's theme of dealing with loneliness and how to overcome negativity in your life. All of it was pretty solid, and especially Yelena and the rest of the Thunderbolts after coming in contact with Shadow. Like once he gets shadowfied, which is something that the Void does. Like you think he's like snapping them out of reality and basically killing all of New York once the Void takes over and starts like casting a shadow throughout the entire city. I thought they were, everyone thinks that they died, but once you become shadowfied, you become sent into the reality of you just reliving your worst nightmare and your worst traumas ever for eternity, I would assume. I don't know exactly how the time works with that, but um, yeah, I like the whole world, that whole sequence was really cool. Reminds me of the Mysterio illusion that Spider-Man has to go through. Basically, Yelena fights through various moments and stages of her life where she was dealing with that negativity, where she was dealing with loneliness, and that's what I mean. And that's what I meant before with like this leaning on suicidal because she was in the bathtub, she was drinking herself. I would say to death, probably, but it was a really grim sequence, and it was really cool. And I wish we could have seen a little bit more of Bucky going through that, for instance. But we can imagine. I mean, we can't go through every character's version of that Shadow World, um, their own version of the Void. Um, but I really do like how Yelena is able to break out through that, find Bob, all the Thunderbolts reunite, figure out a way to stop the Void. As Bob is fighting the Void, I really like how they realize that, punching your way out, you know, instead of trying to fight this negativity and fight this, what's ever bothering you in life, just learning to be at peace and let go and accept it rather than completely avoid it or completely cast it out is a more healthier way of dealing with this trauma and this negativity rather than the latter, um, which I really like. And all that work of Yelena and her own problems in the movie, and her explaining that to the Red Guardian, um, because of that, it was written really, really well, and really wraps the film up nicely. And what makes this film a success, in my opinion, by tying the conflict and the theme and the emotional core of the movie into two characters that essentially being Bob and Yelena, which is something that isn't normally done. I mean, it should be done if you're writing a good movie, but it's something that you don't see in the MCU, let alone in the movies. Um, you don't see in a long time. I haven't seen in a long time, um, which I really appreciated and I really liked. Um, but I still don't like. I really don't like Julia Louis-Dreyfus in this movie. And it's part of her performance and then part of her character. I feel like she's a very nothing character to me. I feel like every time she's appeared on screen, I'm like, okay, I don't care. She doesn't seem threatening, and we kind of see a little bit of her threatening side, but she feels like I feel like her entire character just feels like I don't care. Like I feel like I don't know what her motivations are. I guess she wants more power. I guess she wants to be in chart in top on the top. But compare that to characters who are politically motivated to be in a power and leadership solely to be in power with like for example a version of that character that they really do like is uh Frank Underwood in The House of Cards, Kevin Spacey's character in The House of Cards. I really like that version of the character of you know that version of the archetype. Someone who's willing to do anything to reach power solely to be in a position of power. Um, and all the negative things we do, we're along for the ride, even though they're bad people. And I feel like they want that kind of archetype to be, with Valentina because I just don't know what the real reason is for her being, the way she is. Her trying to obtain vibranium, her trying to create the next superhero, her trying to be in charge of the Avengers, her trying to, anything. I feel like she just doesn't care enough for me to be convinced that everything that she's doing, like she doesn't need to be right. I just feel like I just need to know that she really wants this because I feel like she just doesn't care, and that could be because of the way Julia Louis-Dreyfus portrays that character. Uh, I just feel like she's really flat as a character, and every scene she's in, I'm just like, I don't care. The only time I was really interested is when we got to see a moment of her past. Maybe that could have been a reason to explain her to explain her motivation into why she does the things that she do, but I didn't get that. It wasn't enough, and her, I feel like a lot of her scenes were just mainly exposition, and I feel like the her and the character Mel, which is Valentina's assistant, who gets in contact with Bucky and how Bucky plays into this because he is, by the way, and it's really weird and I find it hilarious that Bucky is a politician, especially considering that he is technically in the canon of the MCU, is the person who killed John F. Kennedy, I think. I could be wrong. I could be misremembering that. But regardless, he is basically uh, an assassin used by Nazis and communists in the history of the MCU in the United States of America and is now a U.S. politician. I just find that hilarious. I know he was under control and he was influenced and controlled as the Winter Soldier, but I feel like if anybody knew about that in the real world today, they'd be like, yeah, we're not voting you. We're not making you the candidate of anything. We're not making you the senator or the representative of anything in this country slash county slash anything. Um, Not that I find it super hard to believe, especially when you have, superheroes taking on, you know, big roles in the universe. But that's hilarious. But again, I feel like Mel's character falls into like an exposition plot tool. Like either Valentina has to explain exposition to her, or Mel just has to explain exposition to Valentina. And I feel like there were just nothing characters, um, just to explain things to us, which you know, which is why I didn't like Valentina's scenes so much either. The only reason I kind of preferred Mel's character was because of her ties with Bucky, and then a little bit of their banter, and then Mel's humanization and her realizing that, oh, Valentine is a bad character. I better tip off Bucky and then have him stop all this. Um, you know, I feel like her character is something Mel's character is something that I also saw in Captain America: A Brave New World with the Falcon. I forget what the actual actor's name or the character's name is, but the new Falcon in the newest Captain America movie. I feel like she was basically that character. Like, I'm here to explain the plot, here to further the plot along and explain plot to people solely for the audience, solely for the audience's uh, reason. Um, um, yeah, I just really don't like Valentina as a character. It's a good thing, but it's a good thing, she wasn't and or at least she wasn't as necessary to the plot. I just really liked, Bob, uh, because she was either in the scenes with Mel, and I kind of liked Mel, but I don't like the way they use her, or Valentina was in a scene with Bob, and I liked Bob. So, and the things that she did with her, were kind of convincing and moved the plot, enough along. But I just, as a character, I just don't care, and I hope they fix her, or they just don't show her again because I really just don't see the point of her character. Other than her, I guess, bringing all the Thunderbolts together and um, by proxy, or you know, without her wanting to create the new Avengers. By the way, they're the new Avengers. Which also gave me a huge whiplash. But that is what the asterisk at the end of the Thunderbolts title means now, is that they are basically the new Avengers. But who knows? Because apparently not, because they're being sued for copyright or something, or trademark by Sam Wilson, because a lot of the people don't see them as the Avengers. And here's the problem, and here's how I'm going to end my review. A, a problem, and why I feel like the MCU is still has a lot of work to do, even though this movie is pretty successful, and I feel like this is what Marvel should be. It has a lot of work to do because I already feel more emotionally attached to this Avengers than what the actual Avengers should be. Like Captain America, Sam Wilson as Captain America, the new Falcon, Doctor Strange, Captain Marvel. Even though they're spread out and there's still a lot of work to do, and we're probably not going to see a lot of them until the new Avengers movie. But I feel like these new Avengers, the Thunderbolts, I like them a lot more than whatever the people of the MCU in the universe are saying about them. I feel like I like this group a lot more. I feel more emotionally attached with them. I feel more akin with them. I feel like I got to know them more. I liked a lot of their chemistry. Um, I feel like it's going to be a big problem about me caring about Sam Wilson as Captain America, considering, and yes, uh, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier show did pretty well. I feel like it fell flat with Captain America as a character and him dealing with the villain in that show. The movie that he was in was worse, if not equally as okay, because I really didn't like Captain America: Brave New World, and I feel like they wrote him as Captain America very poorly, and it just wasn't a good movie. And that's not a good thing when you want you know him to be the leader of the Avengers, because I think Sam Wilson as Captain America is supposed to be the new leader of the Avengers. Um, yeah, because I just don't because when I hear Sam Wilson suing the new Avengers for trademark or copyright reasons, I'm like, I'm on Bucky's side. I'm on Yelena's side. I'm on Red Guardian's side because I like this group a lot more, and I feel like that's a problem. I feel like I shouldn't. I should feel more in conflict with this situation, uh, even though it's in a post-credit scene. I feel like I should be more conflicted about this than I should be, um, because they are a stand-in. They are Avengers group made by the government, technically, um, overseen by the government, which is not what the Avengers are supposed to be. Um, but what are you gonna do? Uh, I'm really looking forward to Fantastic Four. I really like the teaser. I feel like we haven't seen a post-credit scene like this that really leaned into the next film, because the last post-credit scene felt very vague, felt very weak, and I feel like the post-credit scene here really made me excited for the next movie, and really excited for me to see characters interacting with each other. And that's another thing I don't like. And another reason why I don't like the way the MCU is in right now. We're too far past the point for every single new character, every single story um, in the MCU to be in an isolated event. Say what you will about Superman and how they're going to handle the new Superman movie, but I feel like in a world absolutely buzzing and busy with a bunch of heroes and villains, that is basically realistically how it should go. A world where there is just too many characters, but that's kind of how it is because these characters all live in within the same vicinity of each other, dealing with the same issues, handling the same villains, dealing with the same problems that the world faces, because that's just how it works. So I don't know exactly how James Gunn is going to handle that. I have a lot of trust in him and how he's going to handle the Superman character, but it is kind of realistic in the sense of you if you do have a world with an existing amount of characters, anti-heroes, so what have you, they are gonna interact with each other, whether you like them to or not. And it just doesn't make any sense that we're in seeing a new Avengers film basically, and then you have the Void taking over Manhattan, and then where's Spider-Man? Where's Doctor Strange? Where's Daredevil? Like I know this is a movie about the Thunderbolts. It just doesn't make any sense for these characters to not be included. And that would be a hard way of writing them in. And it would be pretty overstimulating. And it would be too much for one movie, maybe. But it just doesn't make any sense anymore. And I feel like after Avengers Endgame, and when you're about to lean into a movie that shoves so many characters from different universes in, you just need to include them in all these stories, have them interacting with each other, so you can build on them, so you can have them form relationships, so they can clash against each other. That way, once they unite, it feels like we've been telling one story as opposed to whatever this is. Because as much of a breath of fresh air this movie has been, we still got a lot of work to do. And yet at the same time, we don't have enough time because they're already filming the new Avengers movie. So really, after the Fantastic Four movie, I think it's just the new Avengers Doomsday film because I don't think they're done with Blade or even started with Blade, and I don't know what else they're doing. I know they have the Ironheart series that they are going to be premiering in June. Um, I don't think I'll be watching that. It just doesn't catch my interest. If I hear good things about it, I'll check it out. Um, but in terms of movies, I really look forward to the Fantastic Four. It does look really promising. But again, once we get to Avengers, the next Avengers film, Avengers Doomsday, as entertaining as it could be and as promising as it might be, it just feels like we really stumbled our way onto here. And it's going to be really hard trying to have all these characters interact with each other. And at the end of the day, saying, hey, it was all building to this because it wasn't. Because he didn't do a good job building to it. Because it felt like a whole mess of D tier, F tier, A tier, some really high highs and really low lows. And but thankfully, to sum up, Thunderbolts was really good. I give it 3.5 out of 5 stars, 3.5 out of 5 stars. A really solid film, a movie that I feel like you can really enjoy. You don't really have to be so familiar with previous MCU content. The big ones, if you want to really knock them off your list before watching this movie, is the Captain America films. Um, Other than the new one, because you really don't need to. The movies, including Bucky, um, Civil War, the Falcon and Winter Soldier, the Black Widow movie, Ant-Man and the Wasp, I guess, and I think that's it. Um, yeah, I really would recommend this movie, but again, like me, if you kind of fallen out of ways, if you kind of parted ways with the MCU and are at this point not watching them or just watching whatever casts your interest, I understand. But at the same time, if you want something good, if you want a good time, if you see this on a streaming service or if it's still in theaters, go ahead and give it a watch. Go watch that movie. Watch that movie. I recommend that. And I really am looking forward to the Fantastic Four movie. Um, everything about it looks really good, and I haven't seen Marvel promote the heck out of a movie since Infinity War, since Endgame, since Spider-Man actually, because they're really leaning into this um, with everything they got. So I'm hoping that they got something good for us, and I'm sure that they will. Anyway, that's my thoughts on Thunderbolts. What did you think? What did you like about it? What you didn't like about it? You can go ahead and leave a comment in the video below, in the comments below. You can also leave a comment on Spotify. If that should be an option for you to do if you're listening to this on Spotify. If you want me to react or watch something and give my thoughts on a movie in the future, go ahead and post that in the comments. Give me a recommendation, and I might post a review about it. and I mean in new movies. I mean, if you want me to watch a movie that that already came out, I'll go ahead and do that and let you know in the video. But the next movie that I'll be reviewing is called Friendship. Is an A24 film. Um, Paul Rudd and oh my God, I forgot his name. His name is he's a comedian. Tim Robinson. The new movie Friendship, starring Tim Robinson and Paul Rudd. I will be. I've already seen that movie. I got an early access to it, but since it's now coming out officially this week, I'll be posting a video and an episode reviewing that movie. Um, I really look forward to that. I hope you look forward to that. If you're interested, stay subscribed, like the video. Look forward to the next video. I'll try to pump these out much more accurately. I do apologize for not being on time. But regardless, I'll be here to watch movies, let you know on my thoughts, and I hope you'll be there to stick around and hear me out. My name is Edgar, and this is the Watch That Movie, the podcast, show, channel, what have you. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.